Hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 97, Margin Mayhem, recorded on Friday, June 5th, 2020. From Zenatta Consulting, I'm Brett Martin.
And I'm Tyler Colt. Let's get right on into the news.
So, Zoho Writer 6.0 was released. Calling it a major overhaul, it's a little interesting. I live in Writer almost every single day, and while there's a whole lot going on here, I hadn't really noticed most of it. So I think if you're just doing basic word processing, you're not going to pick up on this. But there are a lot of things here, though, that are for around automation and a whole bunch of other things that I think actually are going to make this very useful. And I just really need to kind of dive into it a bit more. But this is big in a way that they've really added just a ton of features that weren't here before, and really nice stuff. They're calling it Zoho Writer 6.0, and they did this, I think we talked about a year ago, was 5.0, and some of these Zoho products have these point releases, these dot releases. You don't really see it. When I went and I downloaded the application for iOS, it's 2.0 on the Apple Store, so I don't know. I guess the web version is 6.0, but pretty nice stuff across the board. I don't know if you had a chance to look through any of this, Tyler.
Yeah, so they've basically rolled out some nice functionality around collaboration. So you can kind of check out of all the people collaborating on a given Writer document, how much time they're spending on each of the given pages. They've updated some of the commenting functionality, so you can add more advanced comments and markups to the document. And I think the biggest one here that gets me pretty excited is that they also have added a PDF editor into Zoho Writer. So this is kind of like if anyone uses PDF Element or any tools like that, where you can drop in form fields into a PDF document. And that's pretty nice, especially because we do some work with a product called FormStack Documents, which is formerly called WebMerge. And in order to use that, you have to create PDF forms, right, which end up getting filled. So currently we use PDF Element to do that. And a lot of the softwares that you can use to create these PDF forms are not cheap. PDF Element was a couple $100. Other ones by Adobe are going to be on a subscription plan. So being able to do that, basically take a PDF in a Writer and create that form, is awesome and could save people a lot of money.
Interesting thing here is that if you actually go to the Zoho blog, they've got the main blog article on this, but then they've gone through and they've actually written a whole other series of blogs around all the key features. So all around the document collaboration, and then the template driven document. They're going to talk about PDFs here. So you can really kind of deep dive into all of this. They spent a lot of time on Writer and a whole bunch here. So major update.
Absolutely.
All righty, and then Cliq. We've talked about their remote work features that they added, which are pretty interesting. Well, they finally put a blog out about it, so you now can actually read about these features. And I noticed they were kind of fine-tuning it over the last couple of weeks from where it came out, and now I think they think it's ready for prime time. For those of you that don't know, remote work is the new part of Cliq where you basically can check in, let everybody know you're available, even have a little camera feed, no audio, just a camera feed. So, you can people can see that you're at your desk, or if you're not at your desk, you can also set your status. You're on a coffee break, you're available to collaborate, you're in a meeting, you've gone to lunch, those kind of things. And of course, since you're in Cliq, you can immediately, jump on group calls and collaborate and do all those kind of things. So this is kind of a really detailed overview of all of these new features that they added in.
Yeah, and it's really slick. I mean, this is kind of, I think, V1 of this. I'd expect them to continue to expand the functionality here. But even just on this kind of initial build out that they did, it's very cool. We've been playing around with it a lot internally. One of the things that's kind of nice about it as well is that you can actually track time based on when someone's checked in, when they define themselves on break, right? And kind of get a little bit of insights into how people are spending their day. So it's a really nice tool, especially given that a lot of people are kind of forced to be working remote right now.
Yeah, I do really like it. I mean, you'd have to force yourself, but it's almost time. I mean, the report example that they're giving in here, where, how long has a person checked in? You can break it by not only individuals, but by departments.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you assign somebody to a department, how long was that department on, and how many breaks did they take, and all those kind of things. They're putting a lot of thought into it. And I know this has to do with the fact that Zoho, basically all of their employees have been working remote. Even, they were one of the first companies to do it. I think a couple of weeks before anywhere else hit,
Mm-hmm.
Zoho went and had everybody work remote. And I think a lot of these tools were so they could have better engagement, better management of their overall employees. So nice stuff. So we've talked about it for a few weeks, but a lot more here to look at.
Yeah, and one minor thing to note for those who are using Zoho One and using Zoho People, if you are using Zoho People, then all of your departments in Zoho People and the different groups in those departments will automatically kind of create the different groups and teams in this little remote work feature inside of Cliq. So if you're kind of seeing these mysterious departments pop in, it's likely because they're coming over from Zoho People.
Yeah, we figured that out when we were kind of setting it up. Also in Zoho News, we've got a whole bunch of marketplace extensions. There were 22 new extensions that were added in May. Zoho's given us a couple of blogs kind of breaking some of those down. There were 10 new that went into Desk, 6 new for CRM, and then a smattering across some of the other applications. I looked at, in the CRM, there was nothing that really got me, but on Desk, I thought that, the Cliq Send and Acuity integrations were pretty nice, but the marketplace continues to build out. I think this is kind of low from 22 for this month. It seems like we had a lot more in the previous few months, so things are slowing down a little bit. But some interesting stuff here. I don't know if you had a chance to go through any of these lists or not, and figured out if anything was worth looking at.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to use Acuity through Desk, right? I mean, any tool that you can use to improve customer experience, right? And allowing people to just quickly send out a booking link to hop on a quick call with a customer service team member is super nice to have.
Yeah, there's some. I did play with a few of these. I'm always looking for apps of the week and those kind of things. And there were a couple in here. There was one that's doing credit checks that I thought was kind of interesting, and a couple others, but I just really couldn't get anything to work quite exactly the way I wanted it to. But there were a few others, but none of the, they're good. I think that these are really point solutions. So you want to go through, like there's got a Vonage one in here and a Capsule CRM and Clockify. So if you're using any of these apps, that's kind of what they're designed for. And a lot of these applications we don't use, so there's no reason to try them out. But I think for a lot of people, they will. One that did jump out at me though, and we got to talk about this. So if you remember last week, we talked about ticket assignment for Zoho Desk, how this was a separate marketplace app. Well, they've also put a new one in called custom dashboards for Zoho Desk. So again, kind of a whole separate little piece that instead of it being part of Zoho Desk, they're breaking it out into a marketplace app. And this one actually did look pretty interesting. I don't know if this is going to be a trend, if there will be big chunks of what I would consider to be core functionality that you will need to add in through the addition of a marketplace app, Tyler.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting approach. It might be that kind of bolting things on this way is a little easier for them to deploy, right? If maybe they're not having to kind of touch the core functionality to build these out. They're kind of layering things on top. But it is interesting, though, because these two types of functionalities, right, like ticket assignment being automated and some custom dashboards, it does seem like something that is core functionality. And again, it's nice to have this functionality rolled out. I don't want to take anything away from Zoho on it, but it's just the fear would be if someone never sees this app, right? No one ever sees this plugin, then they won't know that this nicely made functionality is sitting under the hood waiting for them.
Yeah, and it's funny on these screenshots. There's sometimes you get a little peek at something here. I noticed in this one screenshot of a dashboard up in the corner, there's this little Z phone thing. I don't know what a Z phone is. Have you seen this yet?
I've not seen a Z phone anywhere now.
I mean, what do you think a Z phone could be? We'll have to keep our eye on this. It's kind of sneaked into that screenshot here, but who knows? What's a Z phone and what does it mean? But good stuff. Good to see that the marketplace continues to develop. A lot going on there, and hopefully we'll get some more insight into these things as they go along. All righty. Also in Zoho News, we've got Zoho Vault enhancements. So this was interesting in looking at this. They did a complete UI revamp of this. Oh gosh, just in the last few months, and it was really something where we could look at it. But in doing so, I guess the drag and drop was kind of missing. So the ability to kind of drag and drop your passwords between folders wasn't there. So now it is. That's kind of the big one. You can filter passwords. These are some minor UI enhancements, but quite a few things that I think make Zoho Vault much easier to use. And this product has really gone through just a ton in the last 6-8 months. It's just a whole new product. It's really good, super fantastic.
Yeah, it's an absolute overhaul, in a lot of ways. And Zoho Vault is getting brought to be on par with a LastPass or a OnePass. I mean, I think honestly, versus LastPass, I would take Zoho Vault. I'm sticky on 1Password just because the UI is just so nice and so easy. But the nice thing about Vault is that the sharing permissions and the ability to associate different passwords with accounts in your CRM, and then people that have visibility of that account can have visibility of the password, right? There's some nice network effects that you get by managing your password in Vault because you can tie it into the other core Zoho applications. So it's definitely worth taking a look at if you need a password manager, because they've clearly made a commitment to make this thing awesome.
Yeah, it's solidly in our yes column over in the resource
yeah.
guide. It definitely is. And also, Zoho ShowTime has added a new guest trainer feature. I had to kind of read this a couple times to try to figure it out, because you currently can have co-trainers.
Yep.
But the big difference here is that a guest trainer doesn't have to be a part of your organization. So a guest trainer can be somebody who's completely outside the organization. You can bring them in, and they basically have full trainer rights. It's if you haven't used Zoho ShowTime, it really is, of all the webinar tools we've used, I like it the best. I think it's just got, super great features for registration, building the landing pages, doing your presentations, all of those kind of things. It's really, really good. The only downside I have on the entire thing is it just has its recording capabilities, and it's the ability to have two video feeds at the same time. Are just kind of lacking, and that kind of ties into the recording feed as well. So you can only see who's talking, and you can't really control that. And then the recording, as we say, has not been improved. But they continue to do a lot of great things with it. If you don't have to record your webinar, your training session, I would say go with this. And this is a nice feature that they've added. And rounding out the news, we've kind of got 3 quick hit little items here. Zoho Checkout has added Zapier integration. It's in beta, but this is a Zoho integration themselves, and they've done a nice job with it and kind of went out and built 10 zaps that they thought you might want to use.
Yeah, it's always nice being able to plug into Zapier. Of course, you do have Zoho Flow, which is Zoho's internal version of Zapier. It gives you kind of some special sauce when you're working with Zoho applications. But tapping into Zapier allows you to then access Zapier's massive bank of integrations, right? So though they keep adding more to Zoho Flow, the rate at which Zapier is growing is just incredible. So anytime that you can plug something into a platform like this, it makes it just so easy to integrate with all these different types of tools and apps, is just fantastic.
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing more stuff with Zoho Checkout, because Zoho Checkout's a really solid application, kind of in the same as Zoho Subscriptions is, but really nothing's been done with it in quite a while. So this could be interesting. There might be, with these other integrations, I think it's going to extend its usability or its usefulness quite a bit. And then Zoho Backstage, they kind of got a post here over in the community around all of the features that they added in May. I think we covered most of these, but I don't know. There seemed to be, anything. It looks like maybe 1 or 2 of these things we missed, Tyler. I'm not certain.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I noticed that kind of sticks out here is getting the detailed feedback, right? So there's kind of built out a functionality to specifically build little feedback forms that you can tie in and pull some reports on at the back end of your event. But yeah, just consistently getting improvements and updates over in Backstage.
This is really interesting too, because they've taken Backstage and they've given it its own online presentation engine, which I have a feeling they've got to be borrowing from ShowTime and maybe from Meeting and the rest of those as well. It might be interesting to check out Backstage and how it's working as far as recordings are going and its overall presentation. I actually have not played with this at all, but I think it might be interesting to see how these remote sessions can be recorded and presented.
And then if we did a digital webinar, get some people some digital badges using Badge Up, they could print them and wear them while they're listening in.
It's a badge up. And closing out the news, SalesIQ has added a new feature which allows you to add an actual chat widget to your signature. So you can configure your email signature and add a little chat with us, and it's even letting you know whether you are online now or not. So it's kind of live. It's going back. It's a little bit of JavaScript evidently sitting in your signature there that is telling you whether you're online or offline. Pretty good, I guess. If you're a customer support agent, you might want to have this.
Yeah, especially with the fact that SalesIQ and Desk already have such a tight integration, right? Where any missed chats are going to write into Desk as tickets for you to follow up. But the big thing there is just, and they kind of highlighted in the little article, is that giving that live access for the fastest customer support possible is just a huge differentiator for you and your brand.
Yeah, I mean, for somebody to get an email from you and be able to click on a link and instantly start communicating with you, there's a lot there. So pretty interesting. I don't know, the way this article was written, I can't tell if this is a new service or not. It's not a tip of the week. I've never seen it before, so I'm going to assume that this is something new, and I guess our audience can correct us if this has been here for a while and other people have been using it. But I thought it was pretty cool, and it's kind of the first time that I've noticed it. All right, let's move on to our implementation of the week. What do you got for us this week, Tyler?
Yes, this was an interesting implementation, and it centered around Zoho Books. So basically, we had a request around being able to dynamically calculate margins on estimates, right? So basically, the business rule at this company is that estimates need to go out at a certain margin level. Right, so they give their team a lot of flexibility when it comes to pricing out the items, right? But as long as that total margin of the estimate reaches a certain level. So this is a use case where maybe if I'm a sales rep, I want to give them a pretty significant discount on one or two pieces of the order, right? But keep the other pieces at full price, right? And I can look at the total margin and see, okay, I'm still above my 40% or 50%, so I'm good to send this estimate out. So basically what we did here was, when you create an estimate and you add all your different line items. Once you save that estimate as a draft, each of the line items will go ahead and reference their purchase price, right? So if I had an item that I had the list price on the estimate of 100 and our purchase price was going to be 50 for this item, it'll return 50 for that line item, or 50% for the margin of that line item. Right, so it does that actually for each individual row on the item table inside of the estimate and writes each item's margin into a custom field. And then it will also take the total grand total of the estimate and compare that to the total of the purchase price of all items at their specific quantities and give you the total margin of the estimate. Right, and so this is really nice because you can go through and you can be basically pricing out all your different items. You go ahead and give it a save, right? You pull it back up. And maybe you see, my margin's only 35% on this estimate. I can't send this out. Then you could look at each of the individual line items and go, okay, my margin on item A is only 20%, right? So this is the one that's dragging my total estimate margin down, right? So now you know that you're probably going to need to tinker with the price on those items on there that are kind of below your threshold margin. So it's really nice because a lot of accounting tools kind of have pre-baked systems around margin calculations, right? Because a lot of sales teams use the margin of their sales as kind of the key KPI to determine their performance and to get approval on different estimates going out. There's nothing kind of pre-built inside of Zoho to do that. So this was kind of a quick way to build that functionality into Zoho to be able to give you both the line item margin as well as the total margin of the estimate.
And was this all built using formula fields?
No, it was actually all a script. So in order to write into each of those line items, you have to script it out. And it's a little bit of legwork, right, to put the script together. It's not an intermediate level script. Some of these implementations you can put together with kind of quick quick scripts, kind of map a field from here to there. But this one, you really kind of have to dig into all the different data hierarchy in an estimate, right? So you have like the estimate, you have each of the line items, you have each of the columns inside of those line items. And any of those columns that are custom are stored in another kind of sub entity inside of each of the line items. So it's definitely an interesting one. We learned a lot about the data structuring inside of books by writing this, because normally we don't write a lot of scripts that interact with estimate or invoice line items. So it's definitely a cool one to build out, and it's one that I think could be helpful for a lot of people who might be lacking that margin functionality right now.
This is really great. Now, are you able to pull this into analytics and run reports on margins now that you've got this here?
Yep. So anything that's in those fields, Books has a very robust integration with analytics. So you can pull like the aggregate estimate values, like the customer or the total price. And then you can also get another table for estimate line items, right? And that's where you get the margin of each item. So, down the road, you could look at, for all of your items, what's the average margin that each rep is quoting those items out at, right? So if one of your big items, where you drive a lot of your revenue is getting discounted too heavily, right, by someone, then you'll be able to pull that up and see it in aggregate in a tool like Analytics.
Good stuff.
That was a fun one.
Yeah, it looked like it. All right, and in this week's reads, Forbes India has a cover story and interview with Zoho CEO Sridhar Vimbu. This is a big read. So if you want to know what his thoughts are, where he thinks Zoho is going, where he thinks the country of India is going, where he thinks the United States is going, what issues we're facing, remote work, on and on and on. There's a lot to look at here, and I'd recommend taking a look at it. And also in our Zenatta blogs, we've got how to avoid common data visualization mistakes with Zoho Analytics. This is a basic tutorial, how to get your data in, how to run some visualizations, and again, worth taking a look at. But this Sridhar interview, Tyler, I mean, we've had a lot of these on where it's kind of like, okay, this is a pretty good look at things. I think this is it's about as deep as we've gotten.
And he has such an interesting perspective, right? He really is a outside of the box thinker, and definitely someone with an interesting foresight, kind of looking and projecting where things could go. It's definitely worth taking a look at because, he just kind of brings a perspective that's very unique.
Yeah, and he's it looks like he's actually left Pleasanton and Texas, and I think he's actually moved to a little village which is just outside, 650 kilometers. That's not just outside. So outside of Chennai, which is where Zoho's corporate headquarters are. So, some really interesting data in these articles as well. They're now up to over 9,000 employees.
Wow.
I had no idea. So the workforce is now 9,300 across 12 offices. 8,800 of those employees are now in India. So the bulk there, and I think you've got 200 or 300 in Austin. So the rest are just kind of smattered around the rest of the world. Anyway, it's kind of interesting. I recommend you take a look at it if you want to see where Zoho's going and what their current thought process is. This will give you a good idea. And also over at Zenatta, we've got a couple new resource guides. I don't know where the team found these, but we've got one on CRM customization and one on user management. These are modules 4 and 5 from a course that Zoho must have put out a few years ago. And these were workbooks that we found, and they're about 40, 50 pages each, and they are detailed. And this is some of the best documentation, printed documentation that I've seen around back-end Zoho. So the whole customization part really is everything on back-end modules, everything you'd ever want to know. So some really good stuff there. And then over on YouTube, we didn't get a lot of new stuff up. We didn't do an implementation of the week or a tip of the week or a product of the week because we were busy doing a whole bunch of other stuff, Tyler, that's going to be coming out here in a couple of weeks. But I did want to point out that the CRM Zen Show is also over on YouTube. And so we've got episode 96 was posted up this week, and which is called Tyler Doesn't Like It. So anyway, I recommend, if you haven't watched our show on YouTube and you want to look at our bright, shiny faces, head on over there, subscribe, and we hope you enjoy it.
You can check out my my hair becoming increasingly out of control week over week as I'm missing my haircuts.
Now you've got no excuse because they're open now. So
I know. Now I got to go.
You just got to go in. All right. And our application of the week is Zoho 6 came out with Writer 6 came out for Zoho. So I thought I'd kind of bring back an oldie and a goodie, which is the Writer extension and clipper for Chrome. This is a really good application. I use it all the time, and I really just hadn't really thought about it much. We haven't talked about it much, but it is it's worth taking a look at. It very, very simply allows you to instantly launch a document, copy something from a website, drop it in, quickly grab images and drop them into a document. So you can kind of almost use it as like a mini notebook. So if you're building something up, you can just kind of quickly access what you're working on, add certain things to it, then go back and actually compose it later. I recommend it. It's a great little tool. They updated it just in the last month as well, and worth taking a look at. So if you're using Zoho Writer, which I do, take a look at this Writer Clipper extension. It's some good stuff.
Yeah, they just have so many plugins for Chrome, just across the board on all these different Zoho applications, and more all the time.
I know we, as we've gone through and we built out the resource library now, and we talk about all the other applications, you almost want to say, okay, I think we have an article on here. I used to have it in my signature, the 12 must-have add-ons for Zoho at one point in time. And we need to go back and look at that and really kind of profile all of these different plugins that are available, because there's some really valuable stuff out there that really enhances the base application.
Especially ever since Catalyst and Sigma were released, it's been kind of a little renaissance in the world of Zoho plugins, right? Because they're just so much faster to build now, right? That all these people are getting in on the gold mine.
Yeah, it really has been. I'll tell you what, too. This week I dove deep back into Notebook for a couple of reasons, but one of the things I started using Zoho Notebook again is because of the Chrome extension, which is really just great. If you're on a web page and you say, gosh, I want to read this later, it's a great little URL clipper and saver. You can do a screen cap and save that. There's just so much you can do with the Chrome extension for Notebook. It's just fantastic. To me, the big thing lacking is sharing. You've got to have more shareability options. You've got to be able to write it back to Zoho CRM. Once those things happen, then the notebook really will become extremely useful. I'd love some collaboration tools on it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
You clip a note and you basically can collaborate on it because there's so much you can do with it. But again, it's another example of just how Notebook is really enhanced with some of these browser extensions. And our tip and trick of the week is 5 ways to migrate your files to Zoho WorkDrive. I thought this was really interesting. WorkDrive has just come a long ways. I'm just impressed with what they've done with it lately, and its ability to, the sharing, which was the big issue with it, has drastically improved. They've beefed up their server farms. They've beefed up their storage, and WorkDrive's the real deal now. And it deserves, if you're paying for extra storage on Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, then you might want to take a look at moving over to WorkDrive, especially if you've got Zoho One. So they have a migration tool. These 5 ways here. The migration tool's interesting that you just can't download it. You have to reach out to support at WorkDrive.com, and I guess they're gonna shoot you that migration tool so you can get going on it right away. But then they've got things like bulk file uploads, and you can import files from other cloud services, using the Cloud Picker. But this is nice because oftentimes we're asked about, hey, how do I get my files from point A to point B? And here's just 5 ways you can do it.
Yeah, and I think definitely start with option 1 with the migration tool. Zoho, so far, and any time that any of our clients have gone to do one of these migrations, Zoho has been really helpful in kind of facilitating the whole migration process. So I definitely start if you are looking to make the switch, start out by getting in touch with them, and they'll kind of help guide you through the process. Make it as painless as possible to move all your different folders and files across the work drive.
Yeah, and they also mentioned their desktop sync application, which is another great way to do it. You actually can drag files. So if you've got your Google Sync and you've got your Zoho Sync, I would appear you could drag a folder from the Google file to the work drive sync and have them sync up that way. I'm not sure how that's going to work, considering a lot of these files are not living on your desktop. But I haven't played with many of these, but there's some good ways to do it. I agree with you, though. Zoho's great. Just reach out to the team there and get that migration going. Probably time for us to look at that, Tyler.
I think so. Have they added sharing edit capabilities with external users? Because I know that was kind of the one sticky point that was keeping us off of it, because we use Google Drive to host files for our client interactions. And we need them, even though they're not part of our organization, to be able to make edits and comments to those docs.
Yeah, I don't know. It's the one thing I have to look at. I did have a client share a writer document with me the other day that I could completely edit, could completely comment on. It was outside the organization kind of thing. What I'm not certain, though, is that you can give a folder with permissions that anything inside that folder can be edited, and that was kind of the big sticking point, which is you can in Google Drive create a folder that says anyone with the link can edit this and do whatever they want with it. Right? It's not extremely secure because you're sharing on a folder level and you're making it wide open. This prevents people from having to log in, use their Google ID, have any of that kind of stuff. Just kind of have an open folder. You would have to have the link, which I would imagine would be difficult to just guess. So, but we're getting closer and closer. And I know Zoho has said that they are working on that.
And on that note, that's a wrap for our show this week. If you've got any questions or comments, be sure to send them over to us at info@zenatta.com, or just head over to zenatta.com and drop us a line.
And on the website is where you will find complete episodes as well as show notes with links to the stories we discussed today. You can also follow us on your favorite media platform and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app. We'll see you next Monday.